Welcome to today's webcast where we will talk about customer experience and actually even beyond customer experience where we will elaborate on brand experience. Today my speaker Kunda Starka is joining us and we have a large audience attending the webcast all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast. So people from LA, people from Singapore, good morning and good afternoon to the ones here in Europe. Before I introduce you to the topic of the webcast, let me give you a couple of tips about the webcast. During the webcast, you can ask questions throughout the chat box that appears at the bottom left of your screen. And we do encourage you to participate, to engage, and even ask questions to our speaker. By joining this webcast, you can earn CP credits. To be able to do so, you need to type in your name and stay online throughout the webcast. And you need to type your name 3 times during the webcast, which will appear through the next 60 minutes. By joining this webcast, you can also earn CP credits, as I've said, and also we would encourage you to share the webcast within your network, within your colleagues and teams who might have an interest in this topic. All right, Kun, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Kunda Starka is the managing director at Alvarez & Marsal, which is a professional services firm. And Kun has a broad experience, actually over 30 years of experience, which will make your age visible, Kun, to the public. Yeah. But he's got broad experience in serving his clients, and he has worked in corporations like Deloitte, Accenture, which are management consulting companies, as well as Coca-Cola, right? And he's passionate about serving his clients to help them and support them with their challenges. And I know that he's also very passionate about customer and brand experience, and which is a hot topic. I lead the Customer Experience Council, which is a group of senior executives at the conference board. It's a peer networking group, and there's always a discussion between customer and brand experience, which are actually very much linked to each other. So today, Kun is going to share with us his experience, his learnings, and even some best practices. That's right?
That's absolutely right.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Kun, customer experience is one word, but actually, if you become a customer, that's already a good thing. So it doesn't start with becoming a customer. I think it first starts with the brand experience, brand exposure, all the brand KPIs that people need to take care of in the corporations to get the pull from the customer so that they go and purchase the products and the services, and after they become a customer, there's a different journey.
Absolutely.
So I know that you're keen on brand experience, and I started my career as a brand manager at Colgate. That was a long time ago, 20 years ago. And in those times, everything was around the brand, and now customer focus, customer excellence become a buzzword, a keyword, as this is the main focus for the companies. But at the same time, the companies are facing challenges to understand and digest the data that are coming from all these different touch points. And also voice of the customer. I mean, there is lots of voice in the market, and it's hard for the companies to turn these data into tangible actions that add value for their customers. With all the measurement metrics, all the chaotic things with all AI and so on, I think the companies are struggling a lot to link the brand and convert that brand experience into customer experience and have happy, loyal customers. So what do you think about it?
Yes, thanks for that, Demet. It's a very good introduction, and we will be talking during this webcast on all of these subjects. As you said, it's a complicated area. I mean, there's a lot of investments and initiatives around customer experience. What we will focus on today is to talk about specifically brand experience, which, as you said, in a way comes before customer experience, but also let's not forget that also our existing customers are still exposed to our brands. If you're a client of a bank or of any company, and you're engaged with the service desk or the help desk or the call center, which is a classical customer experience touch point, you still see other marketing communications coming your way. And it's very important to see how does that all relate? Does it all relate? And how can we, in all this complexity, get to something which is kind of, I would say, academically sound and proven and solid, but still very pragmatic and something that you can do something with, and that's something which is actually actionable at the end of the day. Because why are we doing this? Why are customers or clients investing in customer experience? It's to create growth, it's to generate growth, it's to provide a better service, is to create loyal customers, to make sure that these customers recommend us to other customers. But at the end of the day, we want to have business outcomes. We want to grow business, volume, market share, what have you. So in that whole framework, if you like, that whole relationship between all of these topics, I would like very high level, but I think in a very consistent way, try to address during today's webcast.
Okay, interesting. So I believe you will talk about some theory, but you will also elaborate on some examples from your clients.
Yeah, so I will start with a couple of observations, and let's probably go to the first slide on that. So there's a couple of observations. Now I'll explain a framework, very high level, and then I will go to more detail around some specific examples, some client cases, some real life industry category geographical examples that we could discuss. So first of all, let me start with a couple of observations that we see when we take a bit of distance and we talk about CX and we talk about customer experience. Let's start with a couple of observations. And I would like also to have the audience, the people watching the video, to look at those different observations, and also to see to what extent those resonate with the people watching at the moment, and provide a bit of feedback on that. First of all, as I said, understanding the relationship between customer experience and business outcome is extremely important. Yeah, we all know about things like NPS, which is a very popular metric that we know that people are using. There is some analysis around, okay, there's some proof to some extent that increasing your NPS, your Net Promoter Score, which means that people are recommending your firm, your company to other people, that this has a positive effect on your volume ultimately. So, but to really understand how that works is really very important. I mean, if I improve my customer level, if I increase my user friendliness of my website, for instance, I mean, what does that mean at the end? How will that drive ultimately my business results? So to really understanding that connection is important and is lacking, I think, in a lot of cases. Secondly, some companies have up to 200 KPIs to track customer experience, depending on the function. If it's a logistic function, is it a sales function, is it a customer service desk, the sales function, what have you. So you have a myriad of metrics, but how do you manage that? I mean, this is a massive dashboard, but then to say, imagine as a business leader, you have $1 million to spend, where do you put the money, right? Should you put it on improving one particular metric or improving another one? And what will get you the biggest return on all that? So that's kind of and given the complexity of the channels that customers or consumer engage with us, it just becomes more complicated to see through the clutter of all those metrics.
Exactly. Actually, in one of our council meetings, a member said, NPS, so what? And everybody started laughing. NPS, so what? Yeah, there is NPS, but there's all the metrics that has to go in line, and it's complicated. NPS is one metric, but there's 100 other metrics, as you say.
Exactly.
And it's very hard for the corporations to understand what they all mean and how they correlate with each other. There's also another piece which we're not touching in this webcast, which we did in the past webcast, but the employee experience, the employee engagement, I think is a key factor that also impacts the brand experience and the customer experience.
Exactly. So that's another engagement, because I think, I mean, all employees are kind of brand ambassadors, if you like.
Exactly.
So I think engaging with employees that is also very important. Again, how do you link all these things up, because it's quite complicated, and how do we can make that kind of in a more, I would say, coherent, integrated perspective, look at all this contacts. We all know that a lot of companies are investing massively in customer experience, right? You see this, you see it on the slide. It's resource intense. There's big system deployments. There's big data requirements. There's analytical requirements. We invest in AI, what have you. So it is an additional challenge for companies to say, okay, look, these are massive investments. What's the ROI on these things, right? And what will be the result of doing this? Another observation is very important. If you look at a specific part of the customer experience journey, imagine you look at the kind of a contact center, right? Now, you can actually optimize or improve the efficiency of that contact center and be more efficient in how you run that contact center and have an ROI on those investments, if you like. Now, what is even more important is about, okay, what is the effectiveness? If I'm a customer or a consumer and I'm dealing with a contact center, but I only talk with an employee, or I'll talk to a friend, or I see an advertising on television, which are the ones which are most effective before I stopped optimizing that particular touch point? So I think there's a lot of focus on efficiency, not necessarily on the effectiveness of that specific contact or touch point in the overall customer experience, right?
And about all these touch points, there's also the non-digital ones.
Exactly.
Which are...
Oh yeah, we are overloaded with data on the digital thing, but I think we are people, right? And you can track some of our behavior or some of our preferences through digital touch point and actual live detail level data. But at the end of the day, we also talk to people. Yeah, we also have an offline life. Yeah. Which also kind of connects us or gives us experience about the brand of the company. So it's important to look at those as well, where we don't have the data as such readily available that we have from some of the digital channels through Facebook or Twitter or what have you, where you have massive amount of information, and then you can say, well, I have so many likes. Yeah, so what?
So does that turn into intention for purchase?
Exactly. So what? I have those likes or referrals or whatever. So what does it do for my business? And lastly, what is very important, I think, if you look at this from a growth perspective, I mean, customer by definition are customers, right? And they're your customers, and you engage with them, and you improve the experience, and you make them loyal and make them refer you. But what about your non-customers? What about the customers of your competitors? So this could be a bigger source of growth than just growing the business with your existing customers. So customer experience by definition almost focus on the customers. But what about the other people or the other clients that operate in your category, but do business with your competitors? What about them? What triggers them? How can you convert them? What should you be doing to connect with those? Yeah? What experience should you have with those to actually make them your customers?
Exactly. I remember a study from the past, which the data must have evolved by time, but the study was showing that it takes 7 times more effort to turn a customer into a customer than keeping your customer as a customer.
Yeah. But it is. I mean, and that's why also I think there is it's more difficult to attract new customers and but at least you need to understand them and to target them with the right messaging, with the right value proposition, at the right moment in time to convert maximally them into your customers. But you're absolutely right. It's a more complicated to understand because they're not your customers. You can't track their behavior, but it's important to understand what you need to do to make them your customers. So all of that, I mean, there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of things we talked about. And I would like to ask the audience, I think you can see a summary slide on screen. There's about 5-6 challenges that we see actually within the broad customer experience sector or industry or services. It would be interesting to understand from the audience to what extent this resonates with them. To what does it resonate? To what extent are some of those more relevant to you than some of the others? Or to what extent would you say, well, there's something else there, which I think for me is one of the challenges that I face, which is not on this list, and I would like to have a conversation about.
Okay, so let me repeat. Kun is asking the audience to give replies on what kind of challenges you face within your industry, within your company. Do you resonate with the challenges that are already described by Kun? Is there anything that we are missing? You could also say that, well, this is a challenge that I face as a business line manager at my work, and I would be very happy if you focus on that. To be able to do so, please type your answers to the box provided, and at the right moment I will give your answers to Kun and we'll continue on the discussion.
Thank you,
Kun.
Kun. Okay, so that's kind of, I think there is a complexity. There is a bunch of challenges.
A big opening. So we are in the ocean. Okay. So let's see how we get out of it.
Let's now manage expectations on this. So let me just quickly introduce. I think the next topic. I think the essence of this conversation or this webcast will be about what we call, or what is being called, brand experience points. So we'll talk about brand experience points, what that is, how is that being determined, and how that addresses a number of the challenges or informs about those challenges to a large extent. So if we were to be able to think about brand experience, what would it, a simple metric, a simple KPI, what would it ideally provide? And it's also what the brand experience point as such provides as kind of some of the characteristics of that single metric. First of all, it's important, as we said, that we see the line of sight between what you put in, it's your marketing communication. So we're talking about brand experience. Are we talking about how you connect or engage with your customers at target through the different touch points as a brand? So it would be good to have if you measure, for instance, imagine you're a brand in a market, it would be good to measure your brand experience. Brand experience points does that, but it would be in a way that, if I improve my brand experience points, it should have an impact on my future business. Yeah, so it's not like improving brand experience for the sake of it, but it would be good to understand how that would drive ultimately the market results. It would be very good to put the customer in the center. Yeah, we all talk about customer centricity. It would be very good to say, okay, let's listen to the customer, let's listen to the consumer. And one of the things about the brand experience point is it is voice of the customer based. Yeah? So we reach out to the customers, and it's research based, and we listen to the customers about their experience with the brands, and also with competitive brands, and we derive a lot of insights from that. It would be good to, as I said, not only talk about efficiency, but also have a view on effectiveness. Yeah, which touch points should I be investing in over and above some of the others? To your point before, Demet, it should cover both digital and non-digital. Yeah, we are tempted to deal with what we know, what we have, where we have data for, but we would ideally be able to cover also everything which is non-digital as part of that. A lot of effort into customer journey. Yeah, I'm a bit. I understand the importance of getting smarter on the customer journey, but there again, that's very sector dependent. And again, a customer does not always behave necessarily the way we think or we would like him or she or her to behave. There's not necessarily that people follow a logical flow in all this touch point. We are human beings, and we can see some main journeys and different journeys, but at the end of the day, it's always the customer, the consumer that will determine the journey, the route it will take. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it would be good to get smarter on that. And last but not least, I think there's a big accountability element to this. A lot of money is being spent, not necessarily also in CX, but also in marketing. Yeah, very broadly. Yeah, it would be good to have a better understanding of what the return is, what the effective is at a broad range of marketing activities. Ultimately, what it brings to the business.
So what you're saying, actually, the customer effort score, the easiness to do business with your branch is also impacting the way customer experience is measured, obviously. And it also depends on the sector. Here I have some answers from the audience to the question you raised, because it's also sector related. Sure. I would like to bring it here. So in B2B, understanding how the accumulation of individual experience impact the company-to-company experience. So in B2B, how does the accumulation of all the activities impact company-to-company experience? Because there are all the tier suppliers that actually serve for the end user. So what's the impact and effect of that? There's a second question or a comment. I think brand does help with the overall customer experience. However, this only helps them to want to be part of the company. We want to be able to retain them through engagement.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think two very very valid comments from the onward. Let me take the second one first. First of all, I think we talk about brands. Yeah, we talk about brand communication, and we talk about the experience that customers have or consumers when we communicate through touch points with our brands. Okay, with our customers. Sorry, it does not. Brand experience does not talk about the executional part that comes with it. I'll give an example, right? If I'm and I'll stick to my financial services example, I can say that, for instance, the support from a staff member in a bank, is a very important touch point for me. Like, for instance, the informative website of the bank is a very important touch point for me. Like, what my friends or family are telling about me as a very important touch point. So what we'll do, we will compare the effectiveness of all these touch points. Now, once you know the effectiveness and the importance and the weight of this touch point in my experience, the next step is then to see, okay, how do I optimize the execution behind that touch point? There's an operational component to it, to make sure that the people are there. If that touch point is very important, how do I make sure that's executed in the optimal way, that people are informed, are fast, right first time, what have you. So that it's important that we do not cover. We talk about brand experience. We'll talk about the conversion towards the second part of the webcast, because that's the line of sight, which is important. But initially, we talk about the importance of the touch points and how we as a brand, how the customers and consumers experience us as a brand across all of these different touch points.
Because the executional part of it is also impacting, obviously, the brand experience.
It is.
It has an importance in the brand KPIs,
exactly.
Right?
Yes, and I think, but brand experience, I think, measures the, in a way, it measures the whole effect and the importance of that particular touch point.
I see. I understand now.
It fixed it for the particular.
So customer. It's hard to see it as a 360 evaluation of all the touch points. Then,
but you see, let's give some examples on that.
Right.
So I think that
and also let's not miss the question on B2B. The company-to-company experience. Yeah,
this is about the brand. Let's not forget. So imagine if I'm in automotive manufacturing, I have my brand, but I'm going through dealerships and what have you. I'm going to the customers. Now, if, for instance, a dealership sells my brand as one of the many brands, that dealership is a contact for me as a customer. So I think that dealership, if you say I'm working through partners and other partners, where my customers or my consumers get in touch with my brand through other brands or other vehicles, that is a touch point that you can capture, right? So it is basically any contact to whatever vehicle it happens, indirect, direct, digital, word of mouth, mass media, whatever it might be, every touch point is taken into consideration. So it will say, if it's a B2B environment with other partners in your network, actually having activities, selling, distributing, servicing your brands, that particular touch point will be taken into consideration, and it will then determine to what extent you need to improve that, you need to invest in that, or you need to, or it's a best practice that you can scale at other parts of the organization.
And I believe this really depends on the sector, the industry. I remember from my Goodyear Dunlop years, the recommendation of the tire dealer had 50% impact on the purchase decision of the end user when it was a consumer tire.
Yes.
because they are influenced by the dealer's recommendation. But if it was a motorcycle rider, then that was a different story, because before going to the tire dealer to buy their tire, they were already informed a lot about what tire. So even in the same sector, but depending on the different usages of the product, it may make a big difference on different touch points and how it impacts the brand experience.
Absolutely. And it is not only, I think it's very sector specific, it's also market specific. And it's also, I think it changes over time.
Exactly.
Some of the, so I think there is a, and depending on the dynamics, I mean, if you sell like car motor oils, I mean, that is a sector which changes from a brand perspective less rapidly than, for instance, you would say the e-vape category in tobacco today, which is still being shaped and developed as we talk. So I think that absolutely right. I mean, all of these things impact, but I think it's probably best at this moment in time to make it a bit more concrete. And I'm convinced that will also answer a lot of the questions that the people might be having. But again, for this webcast, I think we need to live it out as a kind of a cross-sector view. But again, when you go into the detail of the sector, like the touch points will be different, the importance of the touch points will be different, the competitive landscape will be very different, and all that. But I hope that in the next couple of minutes I'll be able to explain more of that. Okay. So let's what I will do now very quickly is explain the high level framework and then give some examples, as you said, because we need to make it as concrete as possible. I think first of all, as I said, it is consumer research based, and we start with determining what are all the touch points or the contacts. So a contact, I'll take an example. If you say let's stick to the automotive example. A recommendation from a dealer is a contact. Now that contact has a particular cloud factor, which is what is the importance, the weight of that contact in that sector, in that also in that market. That's a cloud factor, which is a weight about the importance of and the relevance of a contact to create brand experience. Then of course you put in the brands in the market, and and how, to what extent do customers or consumers associate that contact with your brand? Okay, so very simply, bring that together, combining the weight of a contact, combining that with the associations that consumer customers have with your brand, that together is the brand experience point. It's very simple. So let's probably give a simple example of how that works. So as you see on the next slide, this is just like 4 contacts in there. You can go up to 36 contacts just to make it still statistically relevant. But the first column, you would say, what is the CCF, which is the cloud factor? In this case, TV ads have a high contact cloud factor. Dealer's catalog, topic we talked about, is a bit less. Recommendation from a colleague is still a bit less. And phone contact with a call center has got a CCF of 50. So these are the weights, and then what you see next to that is the associations from the brands that you multiply very simply with those metrics, and you get to a currency which is points. In this case, you can see TV ads for brand A, 90 times 30, that's 2,700. That's just the number of points. Now this looks very straightforward. I think there's a lot of, I would say, the key point here is about how do you determine the CCF. So what is the weight of a contact? So there's a lot of, I would say, algorithm around what is the informative value of a contact? What is the emotional value of a contact? To what extent does it convert you to a sale? For instance, if I'm a test drive in the car industry, is a very important contact. It's the last one almost before you decide to buy the car. So that's a contact which is very important to convert you to a sale. Let's put that. Doing a television advertising to build some emotional bond with the brand, that has a very good emotional value, high emotional value. But then, for instance, have a website with all the technical characteristics of the product, that has a lot of information value. So there's all of that stuff goes into CCF. But the key point about this is that you have that single metric. It's points. Now it's like dollars, because the moment you know my brand, in this particular case, my brand A creates 6,000 brand experience points in the market, and has a 59th brand experience share, and this is a market with just 2 brands, just to make it very simple, you can say, well, that's good. So from a communication perspective, from a marketing communication perspective, in the customers and the consumer in the market, customer and non-customers, I'm creating 59% share of brand experience. Right? Now, brand experience share, of course, correlates, and I come to that,
To
with
the share
market
of
share.
markets.
With
Yeah,
market
I was
share.
just going to
There is
say.
and there's statistical evidence that has been proven and tested hundreds of times academically and through live cases, where there's a correlation between changes in brand experience share and subsequent changes in market share.
So there is a correlation, and it
It's
probably
a causal.
follows. Yeah, it also follows probably the trends. If your brand experience is in a trend going upwards, that means that your share of market would also
Will
increase,
follow.
will follow.
All the rest staying the same.
Yeah.
So we're
which
not
is in
talking
an
about
ideal world, which
exactly.
does
No, but
never
I think if
happen,
you're
but it's a good indication.
No, but this is about the communication part, right? So this is not about how good you are at your internal processes, for instance, right? So this is about, but there is a link, I will come to that at the end. But this is purely saying this is measuring brand experience, points and share, and that allows you to say, okay, you can start benchmarking versus your competition. You could start seeing over time how you're doing. You could start comparing markets. So that's kind of the and that's kind of the biggest, most important message from today's webcast is okay, it's about the determination of the brand experience points and hence the share, and ultimately what you can do with that, to answer the questions that we talked about, okay? Before we get into that, just very quickly, this is not like a last year's fad, so this has been around as methodology for over 20 years. And you see some of the data points on the slide. So this has been used, say globally, across 90 more plus markets, across all kind of categories. And as I said, there is a causal relationship between changes in BES and changes on the share and changes in market share and value, right, or between 0.85 and 0.9. So the essence is this works, right? So it means if you are making decisions to increase your brand experience points, or to ultimately increasing your brand experience share, you will see the outcome later in time, depending on the speed of the category in your market results.
And actually, this is also a good evidence and a convincing point for the marketeers to get the budget approval based on the spending data.
Absolutely, because I think there is, of course, as I said, this line of sight is very important. So that's why I would very briefly, you can see on the next slide, you see at the bottom market outcomes, because all of this is great. If you measure this thing, you say, oh, look at our brand experience points and share. If it's just like an interesting metric, but you cannot see, there is no direct link between maximizing that metric and the business results, why do it, right? So it is really fundamental that you have that relationship. So that's kind of the overall framework. So let me quickly give some examples to make it a bit real to the people. It all start with contacts. We talked about contacts a lot. I can go quickly to that. On the next visual, you will see an example, in this case from the financial sector. This will look different in any sector, right? I did a lot of work in consumer products. This, for instance, a glass will be very important in beer, right? To give an example. Right? So here you see the financial sectors. You see digital contacts, mass media, point of sale related, sponsorship, indirect, one-to-one. So this is the breadth of the contacts that we have that actually you can measure and hence manage with this approach. I give an example. If you take indirect, which is the yellow box, you see the first one: information, opinions, and views on the banks provided by friends, family, and colleagues. That is a very specific contact where we want to understand how important is that for selecting and for experience the brands. So this is like what we typically would be kind of the NPS-like metric. If you see on the one-to-one, you see the contact with the call center in there, right? Which is a classical CX metric and activity. So this would be 2 examples of 2 out of the 34, 35 metrics, that would be relevant, just as example of things that we are also tracking, I think, and measuring within the CX context. But this is just kind of giving you the wealth and the breadth of what we could look at. Yeah. So this is the list of the context. So anyway, so all good, very industry dependent, very market dependent. Yeah. The next point is the cloud factor. I talked about the cloud factor, which is the importance of the contact in a sector. Has nothing to do with you as a company, has nothing to do with you as a brand. This is purely how important is that contact in this sector, right? So again, an example, yeah, for the same banking industry.
How do you measure how do you identify the importance of the contact? What's the metric for that?
That's the cloud factor. Right? This is, as I said in this previous, you have the cloud factor and the associations. Mm-hmm. So this is about the cloud factor. Okay. This is the cloud factor. There's a lot of things behind that, yeah, which is about the information value of a contact, the emotional value of a contact. Does it convert into sales? So there's a lot behind this, yeah. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it ends up to one number, which is the cloud factor, which you see ranked in this particular case this is for banks in Italy, just to give that example, right? So what you can see from that is like a bank website is extremely important, yeah, which is a digital contact. Face-to-face contact with staff is very important. It's the second most important contact for any customer or consumer looking at the bank in Italy. Yeah? So it also immediately indicates if I'm a bank, I mean, probably I should prioritize some of this contact. I should be working along those contacts. On the other extreme, you can see at the bottom right, you see the question mark. There's a lot of green things there, which is mass media. In this particular case, yeah, mass media or do not have a high cloud factor. And as I've seen before, you should question yourself whether you should be investing a lot of money in these things, right? So that's kind of what comes very simply for this type of analysis. And then again, quickly, completely different.
Where are claims here? The graph is very small that I can't read, but is claims playing an important factor in this picture? Claims like the consumer complaints and so on.
Well, I think if that's the contact part, the claim itself, if you say I have a department which is called a service desk which is dealing with claims. Yeah,
that impacts the cloud factor.
Exactly. Then you put the claim department as a contact, yeah, and that will have a particular cloud factor. But again, it will be put into comparison with all the other things that you as a customer or consumer are in touch with the brands.
The reason I'm asking this question, I know a person who is working in a big leading bank, and she is responsible for claims. Yeah. Claims meaning complaints. And she's the one that has the end responsibility on customer experience and therefore brand experience. That's why I would assume that the complaints is playing a big factor in the cloud factor for the banking sector.
For the banking, yes. And then you would see then you would need to see, okay, let's put a claim and how the thing. It is important that we do not talk about the quality of responding to the claims, although you will see later that I think that will have an impact on the ultimate metric. But from a cloud factor perspective, this will tell you how important is that claim department as a contact for me as a customer. And in banks, it will be massively important. Yeah. In other sectors where there's a lot less claims, or it's a lower value item, so to speak, a bank is important for you personally. Yeah? A car is important. It's a big decision. Yeah. So everything that has to do with the one-on-one, with the recommendations, with the service afterwards is extremely important. If you're in a fast-moving consumer sector, claims will be a lot less. How often do you call with a claim about a drink, for instance, right? So that's kind of the claim department will be showing up as a
cloud factor
with a particular cloud factor in this metric. Yes.
Okay.
And then completely different example. This is like oral care. Yeah? You could see oral care, which is like everything, all the products that you buy.
It's toothpaste, toothbrushes, mouthwash, and the floss.
All of this.
I started my career at Colgate, and I was responsible for the oral care department. So I can write a book about it. That's what oral care is.
Yeah, so that's oral care. I couldn't have said it any better than what oral care is. But what you can see, I just want to highlight the two specific contacts in there, which we'll come back a bit later. The first one is dental recommendation. Yeah, that's clear. I mean, if the dentist tell you should buy this toothpaste, I mean, it's obvious that this is a massively important consider. But then you see a second one, which is like samples from dentists, also figure very high up. Yeah, and I'll give an example where this is where we can see we can do something with this, which is an insight being derived from this. But I'll come back on the next video. Anyway, so this is the contacts. Very simple, very industry specific, and very market specific. Okay, and that gives you a weight, and you should question. First of all, should I be investing a lot of money in contacts? Do not carry a lot of weight in this category. So the second thing is the brand association. That's quite simple. It's about the associations that the consumers have of you, your brand, with this contact. Yeah, and I'm going for this benefit of time, going a bit further. What you see there is at the vertical axis, you see what we call the CCF, which is the importance of the contact overall. Again, that is category specific, has nothing to do with you as a brand. On the horizontal axis, you see the differentiation, which is linked to the intensity of association. So, for instance, if you are, let's take, we can take any sector. Let's take automotive to stick to that. I mean, a dealership, or a test ride or what have you, are very important contacts for that sector. Now, if everybody, this might be very hot as a Clyde factor, it might be up north, it's a very important contact, but everybody is playing there. Everybody is doing that. So you need to be there, but it's kind of there's not a lot of differentiating because everybody is doing that. So this is about what we call a battlefield contact. Yeah. However, and the interesting word is at the top right, which are leadership contacts, which are contacts where the consumers say, this is very important for me, but there's not a lot of associations or brand associations with that contact. So there's an opportunity for you as a company to invest in that contact. It is important for the customer, not a lot of differentiation, not a lot of associations. So you can actually, by investing in that contact, be differentiating and take it as a leadership, take the leadership on that contact. And just to make it very clear, if you take that previous example, forget all the bullets in there. These are the previous oral care contacts. At the top left, you see dentist recommendation. Yeah, it is very high CCF. It's on the vertical axis, but it's to the left, so it's very competitive. So everybody is doing that. Colgate is doing that. I'm sure all the rest, the big players, are investing in having that dental recommendation, have the dentist informed or whatever. What you see at the top right, for instance, is samples from dentists, where you see from this, which is again nothing to do with your brand. It just say there's not a lot of competition there, but it's important it's high up, but it's to the right. So there's an opportunity there if you're an oral care business to start investing in that contact, because it's important and it's not really very competitive. Okay. Good. So let me move on. Yes, and then bringing that together is what we call brand experience points. Yeah, and if you what you can then start doing is measure, as is very logical, what are the brand experience points I'm measuring me as a brand across all of these contacts. You can see here the ranking of that. You can start seeing some of the BEPs, some of the investments you're making that do not create a lot of BEPs. Yeah, and if you then, for instance, see this a table, you can start comparing how much do I invest, and how much BEPs does it create. If you're investing 10% of your budget, but it's only creating 2% of the BEPs, this is not very effective contact.
Obviously, this impacts the marketing spend because it gives an indication on your media mix, whether you should invest in outdoor or in radio or in print or on social media.
Yes. Well, these are the Clyde factor, but again, you could have a contact which is, imagine a contact which is like in the middle from a consumer perspective, but you're very creative, you're very innovative on this thing. So it does create a lot of associations, so a lot of points. That's still a good thing to do, right? There might be something which is very important to do from a customer's perspective, but your execution is not very good. So you do not create a lot of BEPs. Then you should improve your execution. It goes to. So I think you need to look at both in parallel. Look at the contact, the importance of the contact, and then how much associations you get, and that's kind of how it comes together. So in this case, for instance, you could see that 34% of the budget was going to contacts that did not create a lot of BEPs, hence do not impact market share at the end. So you should question. It's a waste of money, or you have to look at how can I improve my efficiency on these things, or you can reallocate the money to do some other things. Okay. I will skip that one because so again, as the point is, as you have the metric that measures the brand experience in the consumer's mind, that compares all the touch points and have all the associations. If you have that metric, you could start adding costs to that. You could start seeing how effective and efficient is my spending across all of these touch points. Yeah? I give an example. In some industries and some categories, like mass media, you can buy data about how much you spend on television or digital in some cases, and how much does the competition spend. You can see we are creating so many brand experience points with that budget. So that's how costs per point, and they are creating so much brand experience with that investment. So that's the BEP by cost. Mm-hmm. So you could start comparing and benchmarking about how good you are versus competition and what they do potentially different than you to get more BEPs than their fair share, than you would get. So I think the metric allows you to compare activities, allows you to compare brands across categories, but also to benchmark you vis-a-vis your competition. Okay. Again, so this is a very high-level example. If you look at it from a kind of an international perspective, because of the metric, in this case, this is for an automotive example. You can see, okay, these are my 4 markets. This is my brand experience share. This is the amount of money I'm spending. I've got so many non-working funds that you can see through the cloud factors, and you can see I've got so many. This is my cost for 1,000 pieces. So you can start comparing, what is not working, what is working, but also start comparing why in this case does Brazil cost 4 times the amount of money by brand experience share than Bulgaria, for instance. So it helps you also do some resource allocation, I think, across. So again, it's all the secret is in the single currency. Once you have that, you can compare everything that you like. Now, the last thing I would like to cover in this is kind of this. So this is, you have your contacts, long list, you have cloud factors, which is category specific. You have your performance, which is your associations, bring that together, which is measuring your brand experience points. Now, how does that relate to market outcomes? Yeah, because this is kind of a very important thing. We also, if you talk in the classical marketing 4P model, we have been talking about the first P. Yeah, we have been talking about the promotional and the communication. So what about things like the product? What about the price? And what about availability and distribution and all that? Yeah? And there's a final slide that we'd like to share on that. So this is an indication. This is it's a very detailed slide, but I'll just share the headlines. This is what I said at the beginning, kind of the line of sight that we bring between optimizing your brand experience, the way it's measured, and what does that do for your end result, for your market share. In this case, what you see on the left side of all the bars at the left side of the graph is actually the interaction. That's the communication part. That's kind of the brand experience part, right? At the middle, you see the brand experience share. So you can see, for instance, where for some segments, we are communicating well. Yeah, our marketing is working. Yeah, for some other sectors, it's not working. In this case, for instance, for this company, the core targets, customer target that they have an interaction ratio of 73%. Yeah? So that basically means they're not really communicating well with their core targets. However, the blue box at the top, these are people with in this case lower income, higher age groups, some geographies. They're communicating very well. So in this case, they're communicating better with their customers that they're not targeting. On the other hand,
so actually you need to customize your communication also based on different demographics.
Absolutely.
This is what it shows.
And that comes from this. So you need to, as a marketing campaign perspective, you think how we can connect better with this group of customers. On the other hand, the core targets, you see it, and this is the second side of the graph. What is in green is the conversion Because if you, as I said, there is a correlation.
So there's a high conversion rate.
Yes, you're
with
doing
the
very well.
target that you don't communicate well.
Exactly.
So
you don't communicate well, but you're selling very well to this group.
So
right?
there must be a different factor
Exactly.
that impacts your brand and customer experience, which turns it into sales.
It could be pricing, for instance. Yeah, could be your availability, could be your product quality. I mean, it could be anything. All of the other components.
Or could be your competitor not being on the shelf at that
Exactly. Could be availability. Could be all. So here you see in a snapshot, you see I'm not really converting very well with my target group, but however, my target group is buying a lot, as you can see, and the guys I'm targeting, we're not really interacting. The guys I'm targeting, we're not interacting well. They're buying a lot, and there's some other guys that we're interacting very well with, and where apparently, but this is not our strategy is not aligned. Yeah. So I think again, there's a lot of ways of looking at this because this line of sight, because of this correlation between brand experience and market share, you can start seeing, do we have a communication issue or do I have an execution issue? Okay, so this clearly, in this case, there's not an execution issue, it's a communication issue. In some other graphs, you would see you're communicating very well, from a marketing perspective with your target group. However, you're not converting very well. So you can see, well, we might have a product or a quality issue or a service issue or a price issue, but it will be seen where the issue is. And then, of course, you need to look into more detail what is causing that issue. So to bring it all together fundamentally, is the kind of the last slide. So, and it's kind of you bringing kind of the different scenarios, what should you do as a leader with the different outputs of this. If your communication is very effective, which is your green on communication effectiveness, and your sales is very high, because you're good on both sides, you're doing brilliant. You're communicating well and you're executing well. So continue doing what you're doing, scale it, leverage, copycat, whatever, bring it across the globe, whatever. So you're a best managed brand. However, if your communication is good, but your sales conversion is low, you're under converting. So don't invest more in marketing. In communication, fix your conversion problem first. And if that's what your priority, but there's an execution conversion problem, so that's what you need to do. On the other hand, if you're communicating not effectively, but your sales conversion is like the previous example, your sales conversion is very good, provided this is where you want to have your sales. The question is invest more because you're converting good. So spend more marketing in your communication because we know it will be converting. And then the rest, the lowest part, you don't want to be there. I mean, that's kind of where it's fundamentally to look at, what is the situation on both sides, or it might be a product issue, what have you. So anyway, so that's kind of in a very fast pace, I think, talking about a lot of topics. So, and again, coming to the end, the single currency brand experience points and links brand experience share allows you to compare all the touch points for your customers and not your customers. It allows you to prioritize where to put the money because you can link the cost per all of this per share or per point. And it also indicates to what extent you have an execution issue versus a communication issue, and to what extent you're aligned with your target strategy of the customers and the people and the target groups you're actually after for your growth.
Well, thank you, Kun. If there are any questions from the audience, we still have some time left. Please type in your questions and I will pose them to Kun. It's, as you say, it's not straightforward because there are so many different elements that that impact brand experience, the media outcome, the cloud factor. I mean, it's really complicated, but with a well-defined methodology, I think this is a great tool for the marketeers to decide where to spend the money, especially in communication efforts. I know several big brands who convert spending money on TV and do it in somewhere else, which is not the traditional way of marketing, even during product launches, but the cost per spend is important and it could be more effective in the eyes of the consumer that turns into sales. So it's, I think, an interesting tool that would help the leaders and also, in the end, the customer satisfaction.
Absolutely.
All right. It's very interesting. So if there are any questions, I can still take them. There is an evaluation form at the end. Please take a couple of minutes to fill that in so we improve ourselves for the future webcasts. As I said, I lead the Customer Experience Council, and these are all the topics we speak in our council meetings, which is a group of senior executives coming from Fortune 500 companies, and we talk about our challenges and how to solve them. Okay, well, Kun, thank you very much. It was really interesting. Thanks for your time and sharing your experience, and also with all the different examples across the sectors, from oral care to automotive. To financial banking, to I don't know what else but it's
we
really
talked about beer briefly.
Beer, yeah, that's also nice. So it's really interesting, and thanks a lot again. Well, thank you all for attending, and we see you in the next webcast. Have a good day.
Thank you.